the bed that I was sleeping with my grandmother, now my mom and her boyfriend is sleeping in, but I'm also sleeping in. So they would have sex in front of me. What? I'm in the bed with them. They're doing all these things in front of me. And I began to mimic these behaviors on him when she would go to work. And
how old were you at this?
I'm like 5, 6. Yeah. I was not told that this is not okay.
Yeah.
You know, my mom is sick. So I'm assuming she is not processing that your daughter is seeing you have sex with this man.
Relationships matter. I need you to understand. Relationships matter.
Welcome to Relationships Matter. I'm Chanel Scott.
And I am Josh Powell.
And we have an amazing guest with us today, Miss Ruth Proctor, author of I Survived, You Can Too.
Yes. Thank y'all so much for having me.
We're so excited to have you.
On that couch. Look at you. Uh-oh.
The setup is real.
Uh-oh.
Yes. So we know the hot topic is domestic violence, right? Yeah. And you have your book, I Survived, You Can Too. Yeah. Talk a little bit about the book first.
So the book is about surviving foster care, molestation from my stepfather, domestic violence in our marriage, being in multiple marriages, but not allowing that to be a definition of me and who I am, but still being successful as a mom, an author, entrepreneur, and a philanthropist. Okay. So just pushing through, no matter what life threw at me, just keep going.
Okay, so we got a lot to work with today. We got a lot of material to work with. So before we went live, you was talking a little bit about your experience with domestic violence with your first husband, right? And I want to go ahead and set the stage. Yeah. Ms. Proctor, you have been married 3 times and divorced 3 times before 40, right?
Yeah.
So we got to dive into that.
Yeah.
But let's first start with the domestic violence. Tell us about it, because we wouldn't let you get into it, before we went live. So talk a little bit about that experience.
We were high school sweethearts. So we dated all through high school. I would say maybe 10th, 11th, 12th grade until I started college. And once we decided to get married, I come from a very spiritual background, a family in the church. You couldn't shack. Okay. So we kind of got married because we were not allowed to shack. So it really wasn't that we were ready to get married. I'm 18, 19 years old. But I knew that we couldn't live together. Okay. But financially, we needed to live together. So we started living together. And once we got married, it started spiraling. And so one day, I found out he was cheating. So I'm 18, 19 years old. I'm like, oh, you gonna cheat? Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna get me a little friend too at work. And one day he walked in and heard me on the phone with him, and he smacked me. And from that smack, the next week, we driving. I'm telling him about getting ready to prepare for Delta. I'm getting ready to pledge. Oh, wow. He's working. He's not in college. He doesn't know anything about the college life. And I guess he felt intimidated. Yeah. And I'm driving. I wore glasses at the time. And I'm driving, and he just started hitting my head while I'm driving on the window of the car. And so I'm driving, so I pull over in the median. And I mean, he's hitting my head and he holds it there.
Just because you talked about Delta?
Yes. And because I had told him like things that I heard. I didn't know. I just told him rumors. I'm like, they might say that you got to go sleep with the Qs, but they don't mean that you really got to go sleep with the Qs. They mean like spend the night. It's just a mind game. And I'm just having this conversation with him, but he was oblivious to it. He didn't know what I was talking about. Right. And I guess he felt some type of way. And that was the second time. The third time was I came home from work. And I never forget it. I worked the third shift, so I worked 3 to 11, and I was in college, so I'm working full time and going to school full time. And I came home, I got into bed, and as I'm getting in the bed, I could tell he's getting out of the bed. The room was black, and as I get in the bed, something tells me, well, it had to be God, to get in the middle of the bed and crawl up in a ball. When I crawl up in a ball, he yanks me off the bed, and then throws me. And we had like those slide doors for the closet. And I fall into the door. And then he just started kicking me.
Why?
I don't know. To this day, I don't know. And that night, I ran out. And I had on the nightgown. And I knew at that moment, I have to leave. It kept escalating. Every time he would hit me, it escalated. And I ran out. And I remember the second time he hit me, my girlfriend was like, you need to put a key under your car. So when he hits you, you can run. And you need a bag in your car. I never did it. So that night when I ran out, it's midnight at this point, I'm assuming. And I had nowhere to go.
How do you reconcile the emotions tied to being hit by your husband? Like,
Yeah.
how do you even position yourself to go back for a second, third, fourth time?
I mean, he never hit me before. We dated for years, you know, and now all of a sudden I'm seeing a whole nother side of a man that I thought I knew and my family loved. So I'm also dealing with the shame of never telling anybody other than my line sister at the time that he hit me. And so when I called my adopted mother and I'm like, you know, he hit me, she was like, did he really hit you? And I'm like, wow, I have bruises on my leg right now. And she's like, he's a good man. So, you know, when, especially from the older generation, if they taught to stay, then me telling my story to her is, you know, especially if she's been in an abusive relationship.
Right.
Or been, you know, that generation are taught to stay no matter what. If they're a good man, they financially stable and take care of the bills, you're taught to stay with a man. And I know, especially being from the country, you know, they're taught to stay no matter what. And she just was like, no. And she's called me multiple times after that, during that time period, and was like, you need to go back to him. He's a good man. And I'm like, he beat my ass. You know, you want me to go back to somebody that beat me?
Right.
That's not love. That's not what God has me here for.
Right.
And so I'm in college. So I literally stayed on my girlfriend's couch for 3 weeks until I could move in. Me and my girlfriend got an apartment together. But I went through hell. I'm in college full time. I'm working full time. And I got a man beating me, and I'm trying to prepare. I'm doing Delta at the same time. So it was crazy. And to this day, it was nobody but God that got me through that.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So seeing that video, you know.
That video was triggering.
Yeah.
I've never been in a situation like that.
What video are you talking about?
The video with P. Diddy and Cassie. Like, I mean, he put his feet on her.
Yeah. That was triggering. Yeah.
That right there, like she was a dog.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So before we talk about the video, I'm just trying to, you know, process what you're talking about. You know, I know you. You know what I mean, and we've known each other for quite some time.
Yeah.
But I think that when you start digging up under the hood a little bit, and really, you know, trying to understand certain things. So at my book signing, you know, I talked about had a family member who had an abusive husband.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's always easy when people from the outside, you know, respectfully.
Yeah.
Because everybody has shared an opinion.
Yeah, that's right.
It's always easy to say what a person would do in a situation like that, you know. And before we go into that piece, I wanted to ask you, because I know you said that there were some things that switched, but knowing what you know now, if you could take yourself back to that time, were there signs that you missed?
Absolutely.
Because I think this is important to talk about for people that are in it, because I'll just let you answer and then we'll go from there.
100%. For one, his father was abusive. And when I really peeled back the layers, he watched his father beat his mother. And I knew that, but he never showed, in my mind, at least I'm thinking, he never showed any signs. But I remember him getting angry one time and punching the dashboard of the car. That was a sign. Just getting angry, but never touching me. So in my mind, oh yeah, his father might have beat his mother, but he's never beat me. He's never hit me. He literally almost worshiped the ground that I walked on. Anything that I needed when I didn't have money to pay my car payment, he would give me the difference. Whatever I
Do you think
needed,
that's a sign too?
Possibly. Yeah.
Because I think it's important but for some people, like with a man or a woman that come in like that, it's kind of, if you don't watch it, it could be a form of control.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's, you know what I mean? So like,
love bombing.
It's crazy because you said, well, I know he comes from that, but then it was like, well, I know what I know,
Yeah.
but I still.
But I have a question. Like, it's like, how do you decipher? Do you judge? Do you say, okay, that person shared with me in confidence that
Right.
their father was abusive to their mother, right?
Right.
So do you cut the relationship right there? Like,
Right.
it's like, that's hard. Like,
Yeah.
Because it's not everybody's situation. So
Right.
That's
Yeah.
fair. I mean, it's a great question. It's
You
a great
know?
question.
Yeah.
What
100%.
are your thoughts on that? 'Cause it's a great question because typically we see a lot of things, whether it's abuse, whether it's addiction or whatever. All of us, we come from something that
Something.
we've seen.
That's right.
yes.
So how do you, to her point, how do you decipher, like now where you're at now, if you could talk to yourself back then?
You know, if you don't have that relationship with God, some things may not be revealed to you. If you're not tapping into what feels right, what looks right. So I think outside of even just knowing his past, because I had a trauma, oh my God. So that's also why I accepted it, why I didn't, make a big deal about it. Because I'm like, oh my God, do you know what I've been through and what I've seen? But that didn't, turn into me being an abusive person, you know. But I definitely think that having that relationship with God will definitely shine a light on things that your naked eye can't see, but your spiritual eye can.
So when we get back, let's dig underneath your hood for a little bit.
Let's do it.
Because I think out of fairness, you know what I mean? We've heard about his trauma and what he dealt with, but then let's talk about what you've dealt with when we get back. Relationships matter.
Relationships matter.
Welcome back to Relationships Matter. So before we went to break, we were talking about domestic violence. So we want to kind of pivot the conversation, and I want to know a little bit about your background. You mentioned being in foster care, being molested. Talk a little bit about those experiences.
So at 5, I'm watching my mother spiral. My grandmother is taking care of me. We're in a family home. And I don't really think I knew that my mom had a mental health diagnosis prior.
Okay.
But when my grandmother died in 87, it's like the lid was, blew off of what was going on with my mom. Because now I'm with her. Because prior to that, I was with my grandma all the time.
Okay.
And I watched the police pull my mom out the house. I watched me, go to foster care.
What was her diagnosis?
Schizophrenia, bipolar.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why we were sent to foster care.
Okay.
Because she was unstable. So the safe haven that we had with my grandmother, I'm going to say me because my brother wasn't born at the time, I didn't have anymore. So that's how I entered foster care.
Okay.
I'm not sure what time frame I went to foster care and what time frame the molestation started. But after my grandmother died is when it definitely started, as far as like my grandmother was nowhere to be found. That's why obviously he was able to do the things, because we were in the family home.
Wow.
And I used to blame myself because the bed that my mother's boyfriend,
Okay.
which is my brother's father.
Okay.
And the bed that I was sleeping with my grandmother, now my mom and her boyfriend is sleeping in, but I'm also sleeping in. So they would have sex in front of me.
What?
I'm in the bed with them. They're doing all these things in front of me. And I began to mimic these behaviors on him when she would go to work. And
how old were you at this?
I'm like 5, 6, yeah.
So when you say mimic, do you recall like the things that you were mimicking?
Oh yeah. I remember them clear as day. Yeah. But it was what I saw. I was not told that this is not okay.
Yeah.
My mom is sick. So I'm assuming she is not processing that your daughter is seeing you have sex with this man.
Yeah.
And so when she would go to work and she would leave me with him, I would get on top of him and mimic these behaviors. He never stopped me. He never said that's not right. That's the wrong thing to do.
Not penetration at 5?
I don't know if it was penetration, but I remember everything else.
Okay.
But I do remember family saying,
I'm sorry, can we get some tissue? Okay.
I do remember family saying that's eventually my mom, somebody in the family found out and charges were pressed. My
How
mama,
did they find out?
I don't know.
Just
And I really, thank you. I tried to get my record but it's been closed because it was I was adopted, and you can't get your record after that. So you have to get lawyers involved in order to get your record. So I really would like to know all the things that happened to me, because I'm pretty sure and anybody that's in psychology, they know that kids block out things that happen to them because it's a coping mechanism. So I know it's things that I probably blocked out that I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I remember enough to, try to escape those times. When my mother had charges pressed against him, or whoever got the charges pressed against him, my mother dropped him. And she takes me to pick him up from jail. What? So while I'm in the car with my mother, she's picking him up from jail. So now I'm back in the same situation with a predator. And my mother is oblivious. She knows what happened, but it's like she believed him over me. And I think at that moment, I never felt safe.
What is your advice to a young lady or a young man? Because that happens often, and
It does.
It baffles me, like when a child is coming to you,
Yeah.
that you take your partner over what your child is saying. So can we just pivot briefly, because I don't want to miss this point, because I'm sure you can offer something amazing to somebody that's in that position. But what can you say to a young man or a young woman that's going through something like that, and then they don't have that support? Like, what would you tell them to do, or what can you offer?
I would definitely say speak to people in your life, the adults that are in your life that you do trust, that you do, whether it's someone at school, a guidance counselor at school, an auntie, someone that you know that we all have that one person that we feel safe around, or we feel like we can talk to. And that might be at school. It might be in your community. It might be in your family. But I would say to speak to those people. But I think that I didn't know that it was wrong.
Yeah.
Because they're doing it in front of me. So no one never corrected me. All the adults in my life that knew, which was him and pretty much him, wasn't correcting me. So I didn't know it was wrong. So I didn't know to tell.
Did you feel safe with him?
I guess I didn't. I don't think, I mean, I'm 5 or 6 years old, so I don't really know what safety is.
Well, I mean, so the reason why I'm asking, because when you spoke about your grandmother, you obviously felt something. There was a difference. So I know it's kind of tough to go back to see in that moment, who or what, but I'm just saying, to the best of your ability, did you feel safe around him? Did you feel safe around your mom? Like, was there some level of comfort there?
No, my mom.
I think at a certain point, because you said you didn't know it was wrong, but then someone found out and reported it, and then I guess they made you aware that it was wrong.
Yeah.
Then he went to jail or prison, and then your mother took you to prison to pick him up.
Yeah, he went to jail. He didn't even go to prison.
Jail. So at that point, I think there was a distinguishing factor where you knew then that this person is not safe.
Correct.
Where maybe you may have felt safe at one point because you didn't know.
That's right.
But then at a certain point, because I'm sure it was a lot of commotion when it came out. Yeah. You didn't feel safe.
That's right.
And so from that moment where she picked him up, what happened from that moment though? Did you go back in the house with him? Did it continue to happen?
So at some point he left.
Okay.
At some point he left, and my mama never heard from him again. So when she dropped the charges, I don't know if it was a week, 2 weeks, I don't know what time frame, but he left. And from my understanding, to this day, he's living in the woods. So he's completely like a hermit. So you talking about like, and I can imagine that, your whole life is turned upside down or something like that. And you talking in the, in the 80s, early 90s.
People find out.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're a white man with this black family, because you're living in my grandparents' home. And now, this happens.
Right.
So for a while, I blamed myself. As a kid, I think I kind of lived with the shame of it's my fault.
So how did it impact your relationships from that? Well, you were 5, but when you became a teenager, right, and started liking boys, how did that impact those relationships?
Well, I think that's how I got into long-term relationships early. At 14 years old, I'm in a long-term relationship, you know, and the molestation continued because I'm in foster care and I'm going from house to house, and I get to a foster home and I'm being molested by the foster parents, the foster mother grandson, and he's like, if you tell, you're gonna get back put in the system. You and your brother going back. He was maybe like 2 or 3 years older than me.
Wow.
But so it's continuing. I have family members that have tried to have sex with me, so I never felt safe around men. So every man that I would be around, I was like, go ahead and do what you're going to do so that I can be okay. So it just continued.
Wow. So it became like a norm.
Yeah. Yeah. Until I got with my adopted parents, which is my cousin. My cousin got me from foster care, her and her husband. And he never touched me. He made me feel safe. He supported me, and he showed me a different way. You know, and even though he was a cheater, he didn't touch me or do anything to me. So I was okay with keeping his secret, but he didn't touch me, you know? So it's like a different form of something else, you know, like you're constantly going from these houses and being introduced to something different. Every house is something else.
Yeah.
And I think in my mind, it was just like, I want someone to love me correctly, but I didn't know what love was myself. My foundation was
the relational blueprint was just because if it's not the molestation, then you got the infidelity.
Yeah, and your mother that's sick.
And your mother that's sick, so it kind of shaped your whole view of, you know, relationship in a dysfunctional way.
Yeah.
What was the secret like as far as cheating? Because you said you kept it secret. Like, so was he like doing it blatantly in front of you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sometimes if we went out of town, sometimes the mistress would go, and sometimes my adopted mom would go.
And he would take you?
Oh, yeah. And my siblings.
Oh.
She knew. That's why it goes back to, you know, that generation. And I hate to just say all people in the baby boomers' time are accepting things, but they were taught to be with the man that provides and allow these things to happen as long as he's taking care of the household. And I watched her allow it without allowing it. You know, like she, you know, she knew, we knew, everybody, people would come to me in school and be like, I just seen your dad downtown with such and such. And I'm like, oh, okay. Wow. Like it was the norm, you know? And so, you know, I'm growing up seeing this too. And so for me, I didn't have my foundation, and everyone that was supposed to protect me didn't protect me. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially. I was not protected. And so the foundation is rocky. So I'm looking for love in a man. So I'm in long-term relationship. I got a beeper at 14 and a guy's paging me at 14. So like my foundation was, love was planted in a very dysfunctional way very early for me.
So when we get back, I think this is important too, because, you know, there's this warped idea about, as you mentioned, the long-term relationships that we've seen from our parents or our grandparents. Because I know you're in the space and you're doing the work. So I'd like to unpack that a little bit, and then we'll continue to dive into, you know, your story. So relationships matter. We'll continue this heavy conversation when we get back.
Relationships matter.
Welcome back to Relationships Matter. So Ruth, as we continue this conversation and we've talked about your experiences as a child being molested and moving into the teenage years, I wanted to re-ask the question, how did your experiences as a small child impact your relationship? We talked a little bit about the long term, but just talk a little bit more about it, just to give us an inside view.
Yeah, it definitely impacted me tremendously. I always felt like I was supposed to be in a relationship. I always felt like I was supposed to be.
I got it. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go.
That's why the 3 marriages.
Right. I didn't love myself. I didn't know who I was. You know, it didn't take until I got into therapy at the end of the marriage where I'm like, oh my God, like, and she had to explain it to me. She said, you had 8 traumatic things happen to you before you hit 18. Most people can't survive 1.
Wow.
You survived 18. I mean, you survived 8. She was like.
So 8. Okay, so we know about the 5-year-old. Okay, we know about the family member.
Yeah.
We missing 6.
Yeah.
What were the other 6?
So, you know, foster care, that's traumatic in itself. You know, being shifted and feeling abandoned from home to home.
Right.
Watching my mother spiral with schizophrenia and bipolar.
Yeah.
And I was ran over by a car from my mother at 9. I fell out of the car and she ran over my leg. My father broke my arm.
Abusive?
Well, he was wrestling with me. And he was drunk. And this is during the time where I'm still in foster care, but I'm with my cousin that adopted us. And she would let me go see my dad.
Biological.
My biological father.
Okay.
And he was just wrestling and just playing with me in the way that he felt like he should play. And he went in the room when his girlfriend got there, he went in the room, I banging on the door, and I'm like, my arm is broke. And I'm crying. And for hours, he let me sit on the floor and bang on the door and cry. And his brother, which they lived together, which is the reason why I have a relationship with my family, my dad's side of the family, he came home. And he's like, what's going on with you? And I was like, my arm is broke. And he took me to the emergency room, and it was broke. I was in a cast for the rest of the summer. So when I get home, my adopted parents, she's like, what happened to you? And I was like, I just lied. Because I knew if I told her the truth, I would never be able to see my dad again. So it was just so many things, you know, from foster care to social services taking me to see my mother in a psychiatric unit. You know, so back in those days, mental health was not a big deal like it is now. You know, we celebrating Mental Health Awareness Month this month. And, you know, it's the talk of the town right now. But in the 80s, it was not. You know, my mother was crazy to my family. I constantly heard my family call my mother crazy. So I began to call my mother crazy. You know, when she would talk and say different things, I'm like, you acting crazy, because that's what I was taught.
I got a question. I didn't mean to cut you off, but do you consider yourself to be an honest woman?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
When do you feel like you got to the point of being an honest woman?
Ooh.
Reason I'm asking, because context is everything.
Yeah.
But you had to lie to survive.
Yeah.
So at what point does Ruth now say, I got to operate in a different space?
Yeah.
Because how many people are lying to survive?
We all probably are lying to survive. We all have something that we probably keep deep down that nobody knows. We all have something that we've survived and been through that we don't want to talk about, that we've tucked away, you know, or we blacked out.
What is that one thing that's keeping you?
That's keeping me
because
not talking.
If we all have one thing that we haven't talked about, what would be your one thing? And I know you're honest.
Yeah.
I know you're open. But what is your one thing?
Truthfully, I think that the book challenged that. You know, I didn't do the book because it was something I wanted to do. I did the book because God told me to. And I fought through my darkest times. It was times when I would write in this book and I would cry. And I'm like, why do I got to write this book? I don't want to talk about these things. These things are dark. I'm talking about my family. I'm talking about my cousins. I'm talking about my mother that's sick that she can't do nothing about. Mental health is something that you can't change, you know? And I was challenged to be the voice for the unheard, to be the voice for the people that are tucking those secrets away. Everybody would look at me in college, in high school, and they didn't know all the things that I've been through because I didn't talk about it. I had a smile on my face. So I think that was a challenge for me to untuck those dark times. But if I had to think of anything, and I definitely kept things out of the book, things I did not talk about in the book that I was trying to protect, you know, my family or trying to protect myself in a sense. I
want you to speak on it because I think this would be a great moment of healing for you.
Yeah.
And as I'm talking to you, you know, it just makes me think about, you know, me constantly trying to protect people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm speaking to you, and it's not that I don't have the courage to speak on whatever. I absolutely do. But I think that, again, from where you're at in your life, this could be a big moment for you.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give you that space to be able to, whatever's on your spirit, to just share and get that out, and then we can go from there.
Yeah. I would say truly admitting that I was angry with my mother, that I've been angry with my mother probably most of my life, and my father for that matter.
Is your mother still alive?
I'm the caregiver for my mother right now.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, my story is extremely deep, and it makes a lot of sense now. But I would definitely say, you know, I shielded everybody, even as 5. I shielded my mom. I shielded everyone. My mom would pick up strangers hitchhiking. You know, we would live in the boarding houses. I slept on bus benches trying to get into homeless shelters because my mother was running from the state to pick her up. So I have seen so many walks of life before 18 that now that I'm in the mental health field, it makes sense. Because now it's like, it's nobody that I can talk to that I can't understand what they're dealing with. I've lived it. And so at times I would be like, I didn't go to college to be in the mental health field. I went to college to be a lawyer. And now I'm shifting. I'm in a shifting space after undergrad. And I was like, this is different, but this makes sense. Seems so natural for me.
Do you forgive her?
Yeah, it's a daily walk. I think in the space of being the mother for her that I've always been to her, even though she was never able to be a mother to me, it's healing in that. Because I have to do something that I don't even know myself. I had to learn to be a mother and a support system for her, even though she was not that for me. She was never a safe space for me.
Is there anything you want to say to her?
I love you.
Do you guys have conversations about things that happened in the past now? Is she in a space where she can talk?
No. Just 2 months ago, my mother poured a knife out on me. And I'm in the process of getting her into a facility. It's been one of the toughest decisions I've had to make. Because mind you, I just said I watched my mom be in the facilities as a kid.
Right.
So you go into a facility looking at your mom in a white jumpsuit like she's in jail. And you go there and you sit in this room and she's made you all these different things. And then you leave and you hear those doors click. And you got to go back to a foster home with strangers. It's challenging.
So do this real quick, because we're closing on this segment. But I think this will be truly powerful because I know you can't say it to her necessarily because of her illness.
Yeah.
But if you could talk to me as if I'm her and really say what you want to say to her.
Well, you want me to cry today, huh? Don't you, Josh?
I want you to heal. I'm doing
You
that.
never protected me.
I'm walking this journey every day.
Yeah.
And I know how difficult it is. But I feel like you're blessing us with your presence. We might as well leave with something.
Yeah.
And you're gonna help a lot of people.
Yeah.
So this is an opportunity because I want to go somewhere. I know you talk. I know you do interviews. You talk, like you do all of this thing to share about your story. You got a book. You're doing amazing work.
Thank you.
But you're doing the work that's helping everybody else. But what about you?
Yeah.
So that's why I said, I'll be her face right now.
Yeah.
And if you can, just talk to me and just get it off.
Whew. You didn't protect me. Yeah. Yeah, you didn't protect me. And that hurts. But it taught me to be an amazing mother. It taught me to fight and to be the voice for people that don't and they can't do what I'm doing right now. And in, the darkest times I've ever had in my life. And he kept me. God kept me. And it pushed me closer to him. So even though seeds were planted to destroy me and to kill me and to make me commit suicide and do all these things that I could have done, I chose to still run to God. I chose to still have children in spite of my fear, in spite of what I was shown. I chose to beat adversity no matter how many times I was pushed down and kicked down. And I love you in spite of all the times you could not protect me. Yeah.
When we get back, relationships matter.
Relationships matter.
Welcome back to Relationships Matter. So, Ruth, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
You know, you have shared. I'm traumatized. I'm just sitting here like trying to gather my thoughts. Let's talk about the marriages.
Yeah.
Let's go there. Let's go there. So you were married 3 times and divorced 3 times before the age of 40. Yeah. And we already know about the first husband. He was abusive. Let's talk about the second husband. What was that experience like?
Whew, man. It's a relationship that you know that you shouldn't be in.
Okay.
But it makes sense. You know, it's settling. When you truly don't know who you are, you settle. You settle for men or women.
How old were you?
Maybe like 24.
Okay, so
23.
You got the 18-year-old.
23.
Now you're 23. So from 18 and then 23, you remarry again at 23. That's young. Okay.
Yeah. So I dated my youngest daughter's father. He actually is who moved all my furniture out of the home that me and my ex
The
lived
first
in.
husband. Okay, and he's the second husband.
He's
not
he's
the
technically
second.
the third, but to kind of explain like how it happened. But we dated, and we dated in college. He helped me, like I said. He kind of he heard my story. He knew he was friends with my friends in college, and so he knew my situation. And he was just like, "What do you need? You know, what do you need help with?" That type of thing. He was just very supportive as a friend, and we dated, and he just could not give me the things that in my head. My senior quote was that I wanted to get married and have kids. So like marriage was like the pivotal, in my mind, was very important to me. And so he wasn't ready for that. Even though I just came out of the situation, I'm still like trying to be in a long-term relationship, a serious relationship.
Married.
Yeah, I'm like, girl, what are you thinking about? But that's literally where my head was. And so he was not ready for that. And I felt like he was playing games. You know, we in college, and, you know, he's like running around and all of that. And so here is this, you know, we both he's in fraternity, I'm in a sorority. So he's like, you know, trying to talk to me, and I'm like, you're corny, you know, you're not my type, you know, that type of thing. And he just kept, he was very persistent. And then one day I was like, you know what, maybe I should just give you a chance. And so we started talking.
And you guys were still in college?
I'm about to get ready to graduate college.
So wait a minute. Okay, so you were married in college.
Freshman year.
I
got married in my freshman year.
And then you divorced in college.
It's pretty much like an annulment. It really wasn't.
It was
like
an
a divorce.
annulment. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you meet this second gentleman who you guys are in college.
So it's 2 guys in college.
Okay.
One guy that I'm dating, but then we break up, and I start talking to the guy that's in the fraternity.
Okay.
That I think is corny.
Okay.
And
so there are black women who in college think of marriage, family.
100%. Marriage is important to me.
Because we got to kill that stigma. That's
100%.
You know, that's another thing.
I was going to say the same thing. Like, you in college, you were pledging Delta.
Yeah.
I'm a Zeta, by the way. I got to do that.
D9.
Yes, D9.
Explains the blue.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And are you hating?
I still.
Are you hating?
I get all the problems though with the pink.
Well, we said back then, icky.
That's right.
But these new age Zetas, they say Z5. So
yeah.
It is what it is. So you dating this gentleman in a fraternity. Now, I don't want to make light But you ain't had no problem getting a man.
Yeah.
But carry on.
I know, but I didn't love myself.
Right.
I didn't know what love was.
But it was something about you that attracted.
Yeah. But look, but
What do you think
real.
it was, though? But what do you think it was?
Relatability,
And you can see a light.
cool demeanor.
Yeah, I'm laid
of
back.
that.
You know what I'm saying? And so you got to be careful when you have a light and when you're the light, that other people see the light that you don't even see. If you don't even know that you're the light, then you're going to settle. You're going to accept the bare minimum. And that's what my therapist had to break down to me. You deserve all of these things, but you was accepting the bare minimum because you never got it from anybody.
Yes.
What's bare minimum from him though? Because he pursued you. A lot
He
of
did.
women, you know what I'm saying? Like
He
a lot
did.
of women, you know, they, I don't know.
But he's
men now,
a manipulator, so he pursued me
Okay.
till he got what he wanted, and then it was kind of like, okay, now I can cheat and
What
I can
did
do
he
what I want
want?
to do. He wanted me to. He proposed to me 3 times. I said no all 3 times, and then finally I'm like, man, this dude proposing to me.
why you
he got a
follow
good
your
job.
Gut? Why you follow your gut?
I know, that's the crazy part. I don't know. Settling. I didn't know my worth. I didn't
You
know
said
who
he
I
had a
was.
good job.
And mind you, when I met him, he had a meal plan. He didn't even have a car. I bought him a car. You know, like I'm.
So what did you tell
still-
yourself about him that made you say, okay?
He's doing all these other things that my ex wasn't doing. He wanted to go on the trips. He wanted to spend the time.
You said he was corny, right?
He was corny, which is typically the ones that do all the other stuff that you don't want them to do. I mean, you know, we can. It's true sometimes, you know. But
That's
even in
fair.
school, you know, you see the
That's fair.
nerd and you're like, oh my God, he's corny, but that's the one that's gonna be successful. That's the one that gonna have a nice job. That's the one that's gonna take care of you. But we don't want that. We want the bad guys, the guys that ain't got their stuff together.
Yes.
And I always, you know, bad guys was my thing. You know, guys I shouldn't be talking to.
So you got into a relationship with this guy who you thought was corny. And so what happened?
So he, like I said, he proposed within 9 months of being together. He proposed.
Okay.
And I'm like, yo, you know my situation. You know, I just, you know, I'm not ready for that. I don't think you ready for that. And he kept on being persistent. And eventually, I'm like, all right. So the day of, we have a private ceremony with just our pastors.
And y'all was still in school?
No, we had graduated. He had graduated. I had graduated.
Okay.
This is 2008.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, everything in me, I had opened up a salon and spa right beside the church. And I'm like talking to my OES line sister. So I'm talking to her. I'm like, I just don't feel right. I don't think this is right.
Star too? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did that right out of undergrad.
Okay.
Shout out to the order.
right.
But yeah, just knowing that everything in my heart said no, but I went along with it. So I cried the entire ceremony, private ceremony. We had an actual wedding, but we got married privately months prior.
Okay.
And
He probably thought you loved him. He like, look at her crying.
Right. And I was crying because I was like, this is not a
what
good
I wanna
decision.
do.
Yeah. But I didn't know a way out, right? In my mind, the guy I really wanted to be with is not ready. He's not ready. That's who I was in love
But you
with.
felt
does
like
that
you had to
mean?
be in something regardless of whether he was ready or not. You
Or
had
not.
to be in something.
That's right.
Can we break down ready real quick for the men and women?
Let's do it.
What does that look like? Because when we talk about, and is there a difference between, you know, the marriage ready and relationship ready? Can we break that down?
100%.
Because if you're with a guy, but you like, well, you're not ready for marriage. What does that mean?
Yeah. Once again, this is, you know, me not loving myself. I think ready is, I want to be committed to you. I love you. I respect you. You know, it don't mean we got to get married. But in my mind, ready was, we got to get married. But truthfully, if you committed to me and you can treat me with respect, dignity, and we working towards something, that's ready. In my definition currently, right now. But back then, ready to me meant, oh, you ready to settle down and be a one woman man, and you want to be with me and you want to be serious.
I want to ask you a question because I keep hearing you say, I didn't love myself. And I've been in that space. I can identify with that. But I didn't know.
Yep.
Like, you don't know until you finally start loving yourself that you didn't actually love
That's right.
yourself.
That's right.
At what point did you realize that you didn't love yourself? Because people say, do you love yourself? You're like, of course I love myself. But then you look at how you make decisions,
Girl.
you know, or the bad decisions that you make and how you allow other people to treat you.
That's right.
And then you realize, wow, I really didn't love myself.
That's right.
Like it's an aha moment.
Yeah.
So talk about when you came to the realization that you didn't and that behavior changed.
Truthfully, that behavior changed after this last marriage.
Okay.
2019.
After your third marriage.
Yep. That's when I went. Mind you, all these things y'all just heard me say I went through, I never went to therapy. I'm in the mental health field, but therapy was not something I felt like I needed. I felt like I was good. I'm fine. I just tacked this onto the other baggage that I already got, and let's keep it going. But truthfully, I never took the time to do the healing. You know, I seen a therapist twice after I got my second divorce, but I was like, I'm good. I'm not about to be diagnosed and, you know, this stigma with this marriage and all this other stuff. And I'm in the field, like, I'm not doing it. So I didn't think I needed it. So I truly didn't know that I wasn't loving myself until I took my coat off in my therapist's office 2019 and said, I'm ready. Let's go. I had to be ready. I had to understand that even though I'm leaving this situation, I got to look and see what Ruth has done. I got to look at Ruth and say, why have you allowed all these things? Why have you settled? Why have you accepted the bare minimum?
Yeah.
Why have you been married 3 times? What have you done? What are you going to do differently? And I wanted to show my daughters something different. I wanted them to show them that they could see a healthy mother love herself, do the healing, and in the midst of course, doing the book as well. So I'm going through the divorce. We're in the middle of COVID, and I'm working on a book. So that's when I truly start doing the internal work and the real work.
So first husband abusive, second husband manipulative.
And a cheater.
And a cheater.
Oh, yeah.
What about him?
Same.
Same as number 1 or same as number 2?
He cheated, but he more so, I think, he more so had narcissistic behaviors. And I'm trying to be as lightly about it as I possibly can. But
Why?
Because we have a good co-parenting relationship, and I've just tried my best to, I'm not trying to paint a picture that's not true, but I do try to respect him in as much as I can. But he definitely was going through some narcissistic ways.
But is that, and I
say it's fine.
we'll get back to it when we get back. But the question for when we get back, like, my issue with that, and this is coming from my experience.
Yeah.
We sit up here and we protect.
Yep.
And then our kids pick up.
Facts.
So which one are we doing?
That's right. He was a narcissist.
So let's talk about that.
That's right.
when we get back.
I love it.
Relationships matter.
Relationships matter.
I'm looking in the camera, but I think Miss Carlotta been over there wiping her tears away. But anyway, welcome back. There she go. She up, y'all. Welcome back to Relationships Matter.
No, you gotta do that over.
No, we had all that.
Come on, Joshua. Do it over.
Welcome back to Relationships Matter. Such an amazing conversation with this queen. Before the last break, you know, we talked about number 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Are you open to number 4?
I am.
And what? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You know, 20 years ago, if I would have heard a story like this, I'm like, bruh. But
Yeah.
being in a position, life experiences, you know, level of understanding, I'm not mad at it. You know what I'm saying? But I do think it's important too, with everything that you've gone through and experienced. What does healthy love look like to you today? Because I want to diminish another stigma, because there's people out there that's like, she can't give me no advice. She went through
She can give you
and it's
all
like,
the advice.
you can
She got the
give somebody all the game in the world, because she just mentioned it. Your experiences trump everything else.
Yeah, it does.
A lot of people like to say, man, talk your talk, queen, because you've seen both sides.
Yeah.
A lot of people ain't seen both sides. So what does healthy love look like to you today?
So 5 years, been single. I have not been in a relationship. First time I've been single my entire life. The happiest and peaceful I've been my entire life. So love for me has to be first from God. I have to have so much clarity in knowing that this is from God, which is why I've been single for 5 years, because for me, I'm in a space where I don't need nobody disrupting my peace. I worked so hard to get here and to truly do the inner work that I don't need nobody taking me back where I came from.
Right.
So I do think love is possible. And I do think now that I've done the work and still doing the work to truly love myself, that they have to come to the table loving themselves, emotionally available, definitely having a relationship with God and walking the walk. Because, people love to throw around, I got a relationship with God. But what does that mean? So truly having a real walk with God and have done the emotional and internal work to walk forward and truly love and be available, emotionally available.
And who do you have to be in the relationship? You've covered him.
Yeah, I have to be all those things as well. And I also have to come with an empty slate of not what I've been through. In the past, I definitely walked in with baggage. This person cheated on me, having all these ideas in my head and, being an investigator and all of that because I've been there, I lived it already. So now for me, it's like I have to come and give my 100%, hold me emotionally, physically, spiritually available. And they also, too, I believe in reciprocity. I think, I need an equally yoked person. I need someone that got their stuff together.
Yeah.
I've done the work emotionally and internally, but I've also been a hard worker my entire life. I was an entrepreneur at 18 years old cleaning toilets, even though I had a full-time job too. So I've done the work and, we talk about, getting it out the mud, but I literally got it out the mud without having anything and no blueprint as to how to get it out the mud. And so for me, I need my equal. That would be cool.
Let me ask you a question. What does self-love in the next relationship look like? Articulate that.
Man. So self-love and self-care for me in the next relationship would be truly showing up for ourselves and for each other. Taking the time to be alone, taking the time to do the walks. And I need a couple of days to go to the beach and just reset. Truly spending that time with yourself so that when you come back, you can show up as 100% self. I think that a lot of times in relationships, we get so caught up in the person that we're with that we lose ourselves. And I think truly being emotionally and physically and spiritually available means that you have to show up as your full self with also the parameters of this is what works for me. This is how I work on myself. This is how I show love to myself. Walking is something that I do probably like 5 days a week. I'm walking 5 miles, 4 miles. It brings me so much joy walking by the water. And so the person that I'm with being okay with, she might need an hour. She might need 2 hours to just, regroup. And I think that is truly showing up for yourself and also having a person that can understand what makes you tick, what works for you to be able to show up for yourself in that space as well.
You said the person that you with, she might, what'd you say?
To be able to be the person that you are, you have to be able to show up as that person.
Okay. When you was like, she might need an hour, 2 hours, I was like.
Yeah, like to go walking
Like
or
the
do my
person,
girls.
she wants them to be understanding that she may need an hour.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I had a little mental, I was like. Okay.
Josh said, you ain't going nowhere, okay, for no 2 hours.
Even with as much growth that you've done and how much more healthier you are, do you think that there's anything that you can identify as something that you still need to work on to this day?
I would say continuously reminding myself of who I am constantly, because all my life I've battled with not understanding who I was, hiding or not talking about the things that truly made me who I am. I'm grateful for me being molested. I'm grateful for all the times that where it's in an abusive relationship or unhealthy relationship, because that's the reason I'm able to sit here today. It made me who I am. So a lot of times we like to say, I regret this and I regret that. I don't regret anything. I don't regret the tears. I don't regret the darkest moments of my life, because it really, truly shaped me to be able to sit here, to show up for my children every day. So I would say just constantly reminding myself that I am that girl, that I am a Ruth Proctor, and that the things that I've been through don't define who I am, they actually pivot me to be the next person I need to be and to show up for my children every day and to show up for my staff and for the kids in the foster care units that I stand for with my nonprofit. Just really honing in on those spaces every day because they need to see that you can go to do these things, but you don't have to be on drugs. You don't have to be in unhealthy relationships. You can still stand in spite of the adversity.
And still achieve.
That's right. Thrive. I'm in my thriving season.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What does that look like? What does the thriving season
Jesus.
look like?
Traveling, being a good mom, just pouring into them, working, still going through therapy. I just started back therapy a couple months ago. I had been out of therapy for like 2 years because I was in a good space. But just really showing up for myself first and foremost, putting God first. I wake up every morning and do devotion in a Bible group Monday through Friday. So just starting and ending my day with God, knowing that He is the head and not the tail, and understanding that I got to put Him in every aspect of my life. And if I don't, I am going to make those bad decisions. I am going to choose and settle because I'm not putting Him first. And that was also a part of my self-care. Understanding that He's a part of the plan. He got to be a part of every part of my life. I can't compartmentalize God and think that everything is going to be right. But if I put Him if I acknowledge that I need Him in every area and I go to Him in decisions, and every decision that I make, I won't make a wrong decision because I'm waiting for the answer from Him first. So that has been just, such a peaceful space and a loving space for myself. Just understanding my foundation. Growing up in the church, growing up in, the South and in a country area, but understanding that really was a pivotal point for me that helped me get to where I'm at now.
Well, Ruth, thank you.
I appreciate y'all.
As we come to a close, I think it's really, really, really important. As long as we've known each other, it's always the silly side of me and all of
That's
that.
right.
But I want to be able to extend and be a space for you. As a positive male figure. I want to tell you that I do love you. I do identify with a lot of what you expressed. And I think that it takes a lot of strength. And it was something that touched me because you were just like, I'm grateful that I went through my experiences because that is what shaped you as a woman, as a businesswoman, as a mom, as whatever your role is for other people. But I want to tell you, man, I appreciate you and you're worthy. You're valued. You're enough. Not sure if a man has ever really expressed that to you. And I do want to tell you that, look you in your face and tell you that. I think that's important because I don't want nothing from you. It's not a sexual motive or anything like that. That's why I think that it's also beautiful to at least hear it if you haven't already, at least one time.
That's right.
In a genuine manner.
That's right. I appreciate it.
And I'm here for you. I know we have each other's contact. I want to make sure we do a better job of connecting more.
Absolutely.
Because community is important. And a lot of times in our communities, as you just talk for over an hour, me and Chanel have done, many episodes. This episode was extremely powerful. But we you hear, whether it's a guest or just me and her, the secrecy within the community, the damage within the households. And there's no trust. And the people that you talked about is not strangers.
Right.
It's family. It's friends. It's the people that will look you in your face and tell you they love you. And be the same people that will touch you, sexually abuse you, physically abuse you, mentally or emotionally abuse you. And it continues to happen, and we've normalized it. And I know during the segment we weren't filming, but that's like a part of my issue because a lot of people talk about where we are today and they want to blame social media and all of this. No, blame the grandparents.
Thank you.
And blame their grandparents.
That's right.
And to be honest, it's not necessarily a blame thing. It's just the ideology that people just pass down generation after generation because, look, we're too embarrassed. We don't want to deal with it. We don't have the resources to handle it or whatever the case may be.
That's right.
This is a real thing.
That's right.
And as much as we black folks say we love each other,
Yep.
this is the damage that we're doing.
That's right.
And in your
Generational
situation,
curses.
I understand it was a little different because your stepfather was white, just like your biological dad is mixed, but probably viewed as white, I'm assuming. So this is the pain and damage. This is not a color thing.
Yeah.
This is a human thing.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So thank you, you know what I mean, for your strength.
Yeah.
I know that wasn't easy.
No.
And the fact, hopefully, we gave you an experience that you've never shared before because you actually had a chance to say some things that you needed to say, which can catapult that healing into to another place for you.
That's
you
right.
know what I mean? Like,
100%.
I know what it's like to want to tell somebody something, but either they're not going to hear it or they can't for whatever their reason is. So thank you for your strength.
Thank you.
Thank you for your courage to speak about a lot of the things that you talked about, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So salute to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, you know, for this beautiful conversation. And we will wrap this thing up. Relationships matter. We'll get at y'all the next time.
Relationships matter. I need you to understand. Relationships matter.